Some towns are too small for nightmares. Moscow, Idaho, a college town of 25,000 people, where the worst thing that usually happened was a noise complaint on a Saturday night. There had not been a murder here in 7 years. And then, on a freezing November morning, there were 4. They were students, young, bright, ordinary in the best possible way. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, weeks from graduating, with a job already waiting for her in Texas. Madison Mogen, 21, her best friend since the 6th grade. The two were almost never apart. Xana Kernodle, 20, full of energy, studying marketing. And Ethan Chapin, 20, Xana's boyfriend, a triplet. The kind of person a room remembers. They shared a 3-story rental house at 1122 King Road, on the edge of campus. On the night of November 12, 2022, they did what college students do on a Saturday. Kaylee and Madison went out to a bar downtown. Xana and Ethan went to a party. By around 2 in the morning, all of them were home. 2 other roommates were in the house that night as well. They would survive. By 4 a.m., the lights were low. The house was quiet. Outside, the snow kept falling. Around 4 in the morning, Xana was still awake. A food delivery had just arrived at the door. And somewhere outside, in the dark, a car was circling. A figure entered through a sliding kitchen door at the back of the house. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing broken, nothing forced. He moved to the top floor first. When he left, a knife sheath lay on a bed. The weapon itself was gone. On his way back down, he crossed paths with someone still awake. One of the surviving roommates would later tell investigators she heard sounds. Crying. A voice. She opened her door, and she saw him, a man dressed in black, a mask over his face. He walked past her toward the back of the house. She stood frozen. Then she locked herself in her room. A little after 4, she messaged the other roommate that no one was answering, that she was confused and afraid. They did not understand yet what had happened. They thought, perhaps, someone had simply passed out. The hours passed. The house stayed silent. It was nearly noon before a call to emergency services finally went out. "Something has happened in our house," the caller said. "We do not know what." By the time police arrived, 4 students were dead, and a college town was about to change forever. Moscow had no suspect, no weapon, no obvious motive. Police said the attack looked targeted, but they could not say who or why. Fear moved through the town like the cold. Students left campus. Doors that had never been locked were locked now. And as the official investigation went quiet, another investigation exploded online. On social media, millions of strangers became detectives overnight. They studied maps, timelines, photographs, rumors. Some of it was harmless. Much of it was not. Innocent people were named, accused, threatened. A university professor, who had never met the victims, was publicly blamed by a self-described psychic with a following in the hundreds of thousands. She was nowhere near Moscow that night. It did not matter. The accusations spread anyway. While the internet chased ghosts, the real case was being built quietly, piece by piece. It began with a car. Cameras near King Road had captured a white sedan in the area around the time of the killings. It circled the neighborhood. Then it sped away. Investigators identified it as a white Hyundai Elantra. They asked the public for help, and the tips poured in. Thousands of them. One of those cars was registered to a graduate student at nearby Washington State University. His name was Bryan Kohberger. He was 28, a PhD student, and his field was criminology, the study of crime itself. He lived just 10 miles from the house on King Road. Then came the phone. Cell tower records would place his phone near the victim's home around 23 times in the months before the killings. On the night itself, his phone went dark for hours. Then it reappeared. And then, the single most important piece of all. Beside one of the victims, investigators had found a leather knife sheath. On the snap of that sheath was a trace of male DNA, a few invisible cells left behind by touch. The problem was simple. That DNA matched no one in any criminal database. So investigators turned to a newer science: investigative genetic genealogy. They compared the unknown DNA to public ancestry records, building a family tree from a stranger's genes. The branches of that tree pointed toward one family, and then one man. To be certain, agents traveled to Pennsylvania, to the suspect's parents' home. They waited for the trash to be set out at the curb, and they took it. Inside was a discarded swab. The DNA on it belonged to the father of the man who had touched that sheath. The match was made. On December 30th, 2022, officers surrounded a house in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Bryan Kohberger was arrested in the early hours of the morning. The weapon, a military-style hunting knife, bought online months earlier, was never found. For more than 2 years, the case crawled toward trial. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. A plea of not guilty was entered on his behalf. Prosecutors prepared to seek the death penalty. And then, in the summer of 2025, everything changed. Bryan Kohberger agreed to a deal. In exchange, the death penalty was taken off the table. On the 2nd of July, 2025, he stood in a courtroom and pleaded guilty. He admitted, in plain words, that he had planned and carried out the killings of all 4 students. Weeks later, a judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive terms of life in prison, without the possibility of parole. He was given the chance to speak. He said nothing. The families spoke instead, of birthdays that would not come, of an empty seat that would never be filled. And still, the largest question of all went unanswered. Why? Investigators were never able to connect him to a single one of the victims. No relationship, no grievance, no reason. The knife has never been recovered. The motive has never been explained. In early 2026, a jury awarded that wrongly accused professor $10 million, a verdict against the online sleuth who had named her. A reminder that in the rush to solve a mystery, the innocent can become victims too. 4 students went to sleep in a house on King Road and never woke up. The man who killed them is known. What moved him to do it may never be. From the Night Archive, some files close, some questions never do.